G'day viewers, and welcome to Phil and Jen in the Philippines. As you can see, I've changed location, and to give you something to look at as I do this vlog, I've decided to come to Valencia town square, and where hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter. I'll find a place and then I'll sit down and talk about today's vlog. As usual, can you guys slap the subscribe button? Jen and I are trying to get to 1,000 for obvious reasons. It's a bit of a challenge, and you don't have to ring the notification bells if I'm going to annoy you every time I put a video up, but please hit the subscription button and help us get to 1,000. As you can see, in Valencia they've got a rotunda, often bands and whatever play there. And the square itself is made up of a sports area. You saw that with the Christmas tree, or an area they often put the Valencia markets. And then we come through to this section here of the area, which is a memorial to one of the heroes in the Philippines. Just down the end, the comfort rooms to the right, of which you've got to pay 5 pesos to do any business. Over to the left hand side of the basketball courts. This used to be a fountain. I've never seen it in use, and I think its days are well and truly numbered, but the grounds are immaculately kept. They take great pride in it. And as you can see to the right hand side, the older guys have come down here, and they often do a meeting as part of the tennis club. They sit around and talk and play tennis. The courts are there at the back, so the facilities are very good here. And then in the corner of the square area, you have a children's playground. You may be able to see the slippery dips or the slides and the swings. But you know, very good facilities for the Philippines. And this area is well utilised. Not today, even though it's a Saturday, because we have a low pressure system off the coast which will develop into a tropical storm or possibly even a cyclone. Okay guys, I'm hand holding this phone doing the vlog for today. And I did the lead up to the vlog especially for Brian. You know who you are, Brian, out there. We will get far more information on the area out to our audience quite soon, but at the moment all I'm dealing with is technical subjects or subjects I think I should get across to the viewers as a point of difference for the vlog. Okay, without rambling on, the subject of today is you may be even ruining your relationship and you don't even know it. So I'm going to point out a couple of things I've observed and a couple of realizations, and my opinions are my opinions. I am not a psychologist or anything like that. I'm just observing things, and there seems to be patterns, and I'll pass them on to you. What I think men that come over here and start relationships, and we'll talk about relationships in the Philippines. There's about 3 kinds of expats over here. The first lot are people that come over and either meet their girl or have been corresponding with their girl for a period of time, settle down and get married and live happily ever after. Now what I've observed is these people on the whole that don't seem to have very much of a problem adapting to the Philippines and their Pinay partners seem to be, and I don't mean any offence by this, but studious types. When speaking to the expats, inevitably they come up and we talk about their previous employment and their vocations. A lot of them are teachers, accountants, that type of environment they've been in most of their lives. And as I said, I classify that as a studious type. They're usually quiet, they're level-headed, they're very organised, and they seem to have the least amount of trouble or the least amount of problems maintaining a relationship here. So if you're one of those guys and you're relatively quiet and you're patient and whatever, you've got, in my opinion, a very good or very good prospects of having a relationship in the Philippines and it working. That's not a guarantee, it's just my observation. The second expat that you find over here are, one could say, treat Filipinas like library books. You know, they take it out and they read it for a while, or they have a relationship, and they return the library book and go on to another book. The interesting thing about these types of expats, a lot, not all, a lot of them are, or some of them are quite content with that type of relationship. They're the butterflies, as we call them. They flit from one flower to another. But I have noticed in conversation with expats that there are a lot of them that can't work out where the relationship is going wrong. And we'll get on to my thoughts on that at a later date or a later time in this video. And they're constantly looking for love and affection, and their relationships run aground for various reasons, or it appears to be various reasons, but my observations are they seem to be all of a similar personality, and they seem to be missing the point of why the relationships are breaking down. And then there's the third type of expat that's over here that probably similar to myself, that is constantly working on attempting to improve their relationship, have the ability to check themselves, and the guarantee of a long-term relationship is never there because of personalities and trying to adapt. It's not natural for me to be submissive. It's not natural for me to not be abrasive. And these are some of the things that come into a steady relationship in this country. What I have found, which may be of some assistance, is the realization that it doesn't matter how much knowledge you accumulate about Asia, about the Philippines and whatever, you need to come up with the realization that there is a cultural divide that is almost a humongous chasm between the way a lot of expats think and react to certain things, as opposed to the way the Filipinas or Filipinos react and think about things. Now, I'll be quite honest with you. I thought if you talk and you explain your situation, that you would have some chance of your partner adapting to you as you are adapting to them. Well, that hasn't been all that successful for Jen and I. Whether or not she has the capacity to be able to adapt at her age, I don't know. So I have found that I have to adapt more than I believe Jen even contemplates adapting. I'm at a disadvantage because I'm in her country, and this adaptation process is primarily on my shoulders. So anyway, I'm quite happy to do that as long as I know that I'm doing the wrong thing and whatever, so I try to adapt. The interesting thing is that you will find when you come over here, if you're from a Western country and you are like an Australian or American or a Canadian or a lot of the European countries, the personalities of such people are usually reactive most of the time. Will react to certain things, and because we've been brought up with rights and privileges, we seem to take the moral high ground. We have a tendency to, in our speech patterns, when we want to make a point, the speech pattern, the inflection of that pattern usually goes up when we're trying to make a point. Now, what I have found amongst a lot of Filipinos, as soon as I get, let's say, passionate about a particular subject, the inflection in my voice goes up. I don't consider myself to be in an agitated state. I'm just trying to make a point. The problem is here is that point is taken as you have raised your voice and therefore you are angry. And of course, they take anger to heart. So it was a big learning curve for me, and I still do it. I'm reactionary, so I still do it from time to time, and I can almost see in Jen's face this crumbling effect as she takes it to heart. I've tried to explain to her a number of times that I am not angry, that I'm just trying to make a point. But when you speak to a lot of Filipinos, they don't hear what you say, they only act on the emotion. So I've had to adapt my speech patterns as much as I can to keep it at a level of when I explain things that is not in any way confrontational. And that's the only time it seems to absorb and I get my point across. It's a very, very difficult thing to do on a day-to-day basis. I'm 65 years old and I have got to change habits of a lifetime. Now, a lot of the second section of the expats, the butterflies, the one that wants relationships, have not worked out that on a day-to-day basis, in a one-on-one living situation, they are usually, in the way they answer, the way they see things, are hurting, for want of a better word, their partners. And they can't understand their moods. And they can't, and usually with Filipinas, when they're hurt or when they come upon confrontation, they just close down. And they call it tempo here and whatever. Tempo a lot of the time is through anger, but a lot of the time it's through they don't know how to. I can't even get away from the bikes here. But anyway, they don't know how to react, so they just close up until they can sort it out in their minds, and that might take a day or two to do so. You've just got to be patient. When I first got here, I had the attitude, when tempo took place, I demanded that they stop and talk things out. Filipinos are not good at introspectively assessing their emotions and then trying to explain it. So it's very much up to ourselves, we guys, to do that and realise that that's the way they are and you cannot change them, especially if you're in this environment and everyone does it. This can lead to a lot of friction unless you are aware of this basic situation. You've got to be patient, guys. You know, you could be destroying a relationship that you don't even know you're doing simply by being yourselves. You have got to adapt. You have got to be, as I said, patient. And you've got to look at the way you, how would one say, you've got to look at the way you express yourself and the tone, and all that's got to be taken into consideration. And for a lot of men, that's impossible to do. You know, the second butterfly section, we spoke about previously accountants and teachers and studious people. The expats I have found that have the most difficulty here are of the lower socio-economic situation. They've never had to reflect on their own habits at home, let alone here, and they keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. I'm not suggesting that falling into the third lot of expats are going to be any more successful. I can only hope and pray on a day-to-day basis that we will possibly get closer and closer together. She will make allowances for my, what they call mood swings, but my intonation, the way I speak, all of these things. I'm behind the 8 ball to a certain degree being Australian, because we're not backward and coming forward. We are rather to the point and gruff. And it must be very difficult for the Pines to understand our mentality and the way we express ourselves. I come from a country like your good selves where there is a certain order in society, whereas here there is very little order, and for them to survive they take a passive stance. As far as we're concerned, on a day-to-day basis over here, if you're an agitated soul and if you're confrontational, you could get into a fight every day of the week. You could get into a blue and just going and picking up your groceries. You can get into arguments simply because they don't react the same way as you would expect them to react. This is something to get used to. As an example of this, and probably the reason I'm making this vlog today, we found out that Jen had been feeling rather poorly for the last week, and she's just broken out in shingles. Now, shingles is caused, as we know, through a virus, but is exacerbated by stress. Now, stress affects these people probably far more than it affects Westerners. So they will stress about everything here, from health. If they get an ache and a pain, considering how harsh this environment is, it's the end of the world. They have a pessimistic outlook on life, and if there's a pain or something out of the ordinary, they immediately assume and jump to the worst possible scenario. Could this be cancer? Is it ovarian? Is it this? Is it that? And I suppose the fear that has been drummed into them over a period of time, and the lack of medical assistance, of course, human nature is to think of the worst and hope for the best. But it's difficult. I've even thought to myself secretly, my God, this woman's such a hypochondriac. But on the same token too, the more I got to know what they have been brought up with, of course they look for the worst and hope for the best in everything, especially medical situations. So if you have an outlook on life where everything is going to be disastrous, everything is going to end up in tears, of course you're what we would consider to be highly strung. So they're passive, but they're also highly strung. So it's like a thoroughbred horse. You have just got to be patient, and you've got to understand some of the fears that these people have. Having said that, for the viewers out there that may be concerned, it's shingles. It's caused by the chickenpox virus and whatever. She was susceptible. Yes, it may be a stressful time for her. Not so much for me, because I'm a que sera type guy, and I don't have a tendency to worry about too much. She even worries about the fact that we're not getting to 1,000 subscribers. So for God's sake, help us out. Even if you don't watch us, slap the button. Please just get me to 1,000 so she can stop worrying about getting to 1,000. Anyway, guys, I don't know if it made sense or whatever. It's just thoughts off the back of my head. I can't emphasize enough to you guys, you've got to do the thinking and changes to make this relationship or these relationships successful, if you want it to be successful. If you're the butterfly or the library type, it doesn't really matter. As soon as you get to the end of the book, you go on to another one. Anyway, guys, all the best. It's just about to rain here, and I'm about to have some breakfast at the Red Table here in Valencia. We'll catch you in the next vlog. Again, subscribe, please subscribe, comment. Guys, one more thing before I go, I've got to acknowledge for you guys that are thinking of coming over here on a holiday. One of my subscribers and viewers informed me that the Philippines has been fortunate enough to get some international awards, best in fields, when it comes to Southeast Asian and Asian destinations in Palawan and places like that. Facilities, food, hospitality, friendliness, they really conquered that particular award ceremony. They're trying very hard. So, some of the best diving in the world is considered here. Recreational diving's in Darwin and places like that. And the Philippine Islands is a sight to see. So even if you're not here on a permanent basis, come for a holiday, guys. You will have an absolute ball, especially if you're outdoorsy, and especially if you want to see some of the magnificent oceans and coral reefs and whatever they do have here. And the facilities since COVID, they have improved the facilities in this country no end, and it's being recognized worldwide. So to my viewer that suggested I mention that to the viewers, thank you so much. But guys, anything you want me to pass on, I'll try to do. And Brian, I will do a lot more travel type vlogs to give you an idea of my surroundings. Okay, mate. Cheers for now, people. We'll see you in the next vlog.